All right, welcome back to the DraftAmerica Podcast, Tuesday, October 7th. We are right in the middle of the division series, although we may be at the end of the division series for a couple of teams. Potentially, the Blue Jays, surprisingly, 2-0 lead on the Yankees. The Dodgers, perhaps surprisingly, I don't think so, a 2-0 lead on the Phillies. And the Brewers, a 2-0 lead on the Chicago Cubs. The only series that's one game apiece is Detroit and Seattle, and they will get underway in about an hour and a half from now at the time of this recording. So that series looks like the most evenly matched. And the question I have coming out of yesterday is, can anyone beat the Dodgers, number one? Number two, are the Dodgers, in fact, a better team than last year, in spite of what a lot of people think is going to be their downfall, which is their bullpen? But if you think back to, for example, the 2019 Nationals, they were able to mitigate a lot of their bullpen issues by using the likes of Patrick Corbin and Anibal Sanchez out of the bullpen in the postseason, the same way the Dodgers are using Tyler Glasnow and Roki Sasaki. Now, it's a little bit different with starters pitching out of the bullpen. You can't use them back-to-back days, maybe not even, twice in 3 days if it comes to that. But it obviously helps offset what has been a very shaky bullpen for the Dodgers, no doubt. When you think about the fact that the Dodgers were a 3 seed this year, they were a 93-win team when a lot of people expected that they could legitimately challenge the 2001 Mariners record of 116 wins. Now, even without the bullpen struggles they had, they wouldn't have gotten to that. But I believe, given some of the crazy ways that they lost games throughout the course of the season, they easily would have been baseball's lone 100-win team, and we would have been looking at the Dodgers a lot differently. I say we. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the collective fans out there who thought maybe the Dodgers were vulnerable this year. 93-win team. They were a 3 seed. They had to play in the wild card round, although it was against the Reds, who were completely overmatched, and then they would have to go on the road to face the Phillies the first 2 games. And yet here they are, 4-0 in the postseason, 8 wins in a row dating to the end of the regular season. Remember last year they went into the playoffs having won 5 straight, and people didn't think too much about it because they wrapped up the division with a week to go, just like they did this year. And then once that pressure was off, they still ended up going into the postseason on a winning streak, and that momentum carried them all the way through October. And I think we're looking at probably the same ending to this season with the Dodgers coming out on top. And when you consider that last year, Los Angeles number 2 and 3 starters were Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler, and this year their rotation consists of Yamamoto, again, obviously, Shohei Ohtani, Blake Snell, who I thought was probably the biggest and most unnecessary, of course, signing of the entire offseason, but it's the Dodgers. And then Tyler Glasnow as a 4th starter, an ace, really, on most teams. Glasnow is the 4th starter. Oh, by the way, the likes of Emmett Sheehan, Clayton Kershaw potentially available this postseason. I mean, this team is stacked beyond belief. And the cries for a salary cap, it's kind of interesting that the Dodgers are playing the Phillies right now, because it was Bryce Harper who famously got in Rob Manfred's face not too long ago and said, we're not having a salary cap. Harper also called out Dodger haters as losers and how he admired what the Dodgers have been able to do, and I hope he's admiring right now as the Dodgers are a game away from sweeping the Phillies right out of the playoffs. By the way, I put a tweet out about the Phillies and this weird trend that they have. From 2008 to 2011, they kept winning more games in the regular season, and their playoff rounds got shorter. From 2022 to 2025, if in fact they get swept in this series, that will be the exact same trend. Lost World Series, lost NLCS, lost Division Series, now swept in the Division Series 4 years in a row, despite winning more games in each of those regular seasons. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why the Phillies seem to be better and better each regular season, worse and worse each October. They have a stacked team. They spend a lot of money the way the Dodgers do, and it may result in a very big thud for them. But the Dodgers right now not only are set up to repeat this year, they're set up to be just as good, if not maybe even a little better next year. Yes, I said it. Will they sign Kyle Tucker? Perhaps. Will they get back a few really good bullpen arms in Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol, and even Michael Kopech, who they had this year, but was clearly not himself, pitching through injuries and whatever else? Will their bullpen be a heck of a lot better than it was this year? I don't know about a heck of a lot better, but better? Yes. These rotation arms are all still relatively young or in their primes and under contract for quite a while. Are Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Will Smith, Tasker, Hernandez, those guys aren't falling off anytime soon. I mean, this is shaping up to be just what baseball had been able to avoid for about a quarter of a century, which is a true dominant dynasty in the making. And I've always said the Dodgers were a dynasty already without the rings, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, right? How can you be a dynasty without the rings? But they were always knocking on the door. And rather than just say, you know what, we're going to retool, we're going to kind of change our approach, they doubled down. And because of the way that the economics of baseball are set up, they were able to do that. And they got essentially two superstars in Ohtani, which then opened up the door for players to say, yeah, I want to come play with Shohei. I want to be a part of this super team. I want to be a part of getting rings, you know, especially a guy like Snell, who's in his 30s now, and he's come close a few times. Came up short because of the Dodgers. Well, and because Kevin Cash decided to pull him early in Game 6 of that asterisk World Series. But I think if you're any other team right now, especially those that are headed to the LCS, the order is extremely tall. Now, is this to say the Dodgers are a mortal lock to win the World Series? No, of course not. In baseball, there's no such thing. But are the LA Dodgers as close to one as we've had in a long, long time? Yeah, you bet. You bet. But they're not the only story this October, and we don't want to talk too much about them and, you know, heap too much praise on a team that I think a lot of people are starting to get very fatigued of. We've got the Toronto Blue Jays with a 2-0 lead, and I don't know that people are necessarily shocked that the Blue Jays are up 2-0, but if you told them that they would do so by winning 2 games by a combined 25-8 score against a pitching staff that has been as good as any in the league for the last month and a half, 2 months or so, I think that's where the shock is. Even more so when you consider that Bo Bichette is out in this series, that their big free agent signing of the offseason, Anthony Santander, is basically a spectator. This has been a breakout couple of games for a few guys like Dalton Varsho, Ernie Clement, Alejandro Kirk, who already broke out this year as an all-star. But now the series shifts to New York. It's going to be hard to sweep the Yankees. Rodon against Bieber tonight. If the Yankees can get it to Game 4, they've got Cam Schlittler. We know what he can do against the bullpen game. So there's still reason to believe this series could end up going back to Toronto for a decisive 5th game. And at that point, you'd have to feel like a lot more of the pressure shifts back to the Jays. But right now, the Blue Jays have got to feel like, man, we could not have come out of the gates any stronger this October. They caught themselves just in time to win the division, which afforded them almost a week off, which forced the Yankees to exert some energy against the Red Sox that they otherwise would not have. And so Toronto finds itself in as good a position as it could have imagined. Do I think the Blue Jays will finish off this series? I hesitantly say yes, not just because I want to see it happen, but because I think that they've earned their place as the top seed in the American League. This team that was down 8 games at one point to the Yankees in the regular season and fought all the way back and then saw their margin for error completely disappear and needed to win 4 straight to hang on to the division as the Yankees faced some really soft competition at the end of the year. And they did it. And when they needed to win, they did. And when the offense needed to score runs after a big slump, it did. And when it needed to prove that it could carry its weight without Bo Bichette, it did, or it has to this point. So this has been really a great start for the Blue Jays. You can see the energy. I love when these teams that have not gotten to experience playoff baseball, these fan bases that don't get to do this every single year like the Dodgers do, like the Yankees do, like the Astros have done up until this year. These teams that are not accustomed to it. I think that's why you see these teams actually doing better right out of the gate during these runs. And then when the expectations start to build, when the fans kind of get used to it, I don't know that like Philadelphia fans, for example, are taking it for granted or any less rabid, but there was a smattering of boos last night. I don't think the Phillies fans would have been as likely to boo during the 2022 postseason when the team finally got there after an 11-year absence. I'm not saying that Blue Jays fans would be booing the team 2 years from now if they threw a clunker in October, in a postseason. But I do think teams feed off of it. You see Seattle finally broke its 24-year drought of not winning a home playoff game. The Blue Jays, they just won their first postseason game in any fashion in 9 years. Detroit's going to get to experience a little more playoff baseball. Got a taste of it last year, but this is still relatively new for the Tigers because they hadn't been in a decade. Milwaukee's experience in postseason baseball. This isn't as new for the Brew Crew, but you can see that fan base feels pretty fired up about the Brewers. And that's a perfect segue because I think if you're looking at the best chance to take down the Dodgers, well, the Brew Crew were 6-0 against the Dodgers this year. Now, granted, they didn't face Blake Snell. Max Muncy was out at the time. The Dodgers weren't quite at the strength they're at now. Sasaki was out. But this Milwaukee team that has come up short in so many postseasons, including twice against the Dodgers in 18 and 20, although 20 they shouldn't have been there. That was an 8th-seeded Dodgers team. First and hopefully last time we ever hear a team referred to as a number 8 seed. But they just keep coming at you. They find ways to put up big numbers, even though on paper the offense isn't this juggernaut. The pitching staff, despite a big injury, I think a big injury to Brandon Woodruff, they just keep motoring along. And right now the Cubs don't have any answers. They look like the inferior team, and I think Milwaukee, they would get home field in the NLCS, regardless of who they play. They would get home field in the World Series if they were to get there. I do think the Brewers are legit. I think if it ends up being Brewers-Dodgers, which looks like a very, very strong possibility, I think we'll see a good series. I do. I think Los Angeles is the better team. I think over 7 games it would play out that way. But this Brewers magic, this win it for Bob Uecker spirit has been pretty strong in this team. And they didn't win 97 games by accident, I'll tell you that. We've seen Brewers teams in the past where it felt like maybe they were a little bit fraudulent, kind of more of a little engine that could kind of thing. That has not been the case this year with the Brewers. They finished the year with baseball's best run differential of plus 172. They finished the year with 52 wins at home. The numbers are good across the board for the Brewers. And they are proving it right now against the Cubs. Now, they still got to win one more, but they've got to feel really good about the way they've started out, kind of the same way Toronto has. It's funny, these 2 1 seeds that kind of came in as more of an afterthought, an underdog, are the ones really flexing their muscles and saying, you know what, we deserve to be the top seed, and we're going to show you. So that'll be fun if it does end up being Dodgers and Brewers. And it'll be very interesting to see how Milwaukee's rotation holds up in a series like that, especially if Woodruff is not able to return. It doesn't seem likely that he will, dealing with the lat strain. And then the last series, Detroit and Seattle. Boy, are these teams evenly matched. I would be thoroughly disappointed if this series did not go 5 games. We've had 2 3-2 ball games, Detroit taking the opener in 11 innings, but then losing the game that Skubal pitches. Neither of these teams' offenses feel dangerous. We know that Detroit has I'm sorry, we know that Seattle has some thump at the top. It feels like they still strike out too much. They're still too dependent on the long ball and extra base hits. But the rotation is good. It's three deep really in this series. Bryce Miller replacing Brian Wu is a big step down. They'll get Logan Gilbert going today in Game 3. Sounds like it would be Miller in Game 4, and then if it goes back to Seattle for a Game 5, well, they could choose between Kirby and Luis Castillo, and of course Detroit would have Skubal lined up in that case. I think there's no way this series doesn't go 5. I also think there's no way the winner of this series beats the winner of Blue Jays-Yankees. I think both of those teams, best record in the American League, strongest team. The Yankees would be coming in with a lot of momentum if they were able to rally from 2 games down. I think Toronto, if it gets Bo Bichette back, could come in that much stronger. I think it'll be an American League East team facing the Dodgers in the World Series. But I've enjoyed watching this Detroit-Seattle series. More of an old school, pitching, defense, trying to get that timely hit that both teams, especially Detroit, has struggled with. Credit to Detroit for, starting this postseason 3-2 after its historic collapse in the division. And given the fact that they've barely hit with runners in scoring position, they didn't really break through until late in Game 3 against the Guardians, and then McKinstry had the big hit in Game 1, and then Torkelson did have a big hit in Game 2, but it wasn't enough. But it feels like they've had to rely on that one moment where they finally break through, the Tigers. So unless they can show that they can string hits together, put up crooked numbers, I don't see the Tigers going very far. Probably not even beyond this series. So I hope you all are enjoying the division series. I think you all will enjoy the championship series even more. That's my take on where we're at in the baseball postseason. As always, thank everyone for listening. Look forward to bringing you more content here soon. For Draft America, I'm Michael Seff. Take care.